Hello and welcome to Library Salad. Today's episode is How Not to Embarrass Yourself at the Dinner Table, and it's brought to you by the Monroeville Public Library in Pennsylvania. Hi, I'm Alice, and Library Salad is just taking a theme, tossing around some ideas, and today we're talking about good manners because good manners have been around for centuries. And even up to the point where George Washington himself had a book. It was entitled The Rules of Civility and Decent Behavior. We're just talking decent, we're not talking anything special. And one of his helpful hints was, do not put another bite in your mouth until the former has been swallowed. Translated, don't stuff your food in your mouth. Emily Post was also very famous for her helpful hints, but she could never have thought of the different ways that our technology would work into good manners. For instance, let's say you're arriving at the table, you're at a restaurant, and a lot of these are also helpful for at home. What's the first thing that you'll sometimes see people do? They'll empty their pockets, their cell phones, they'll put the keys down. Texting, answering phones at the table is actually very rude. I know it's become very common, but that doesn't make it right. You might be interested in knowing that cell phones actually have 10 times the amount of germs on it than your toilet does. Do you really want that around your, do you really want that around your food? No, you do not. So think about that. When you sit down, maybe the restaurant, when you go to eat, you have spread like this. Now, when you sit down and you have a napkin there, when you take it, you'll simply just place it on your lap. There's no reason some people go like this and like this. This is not a terrible towel. You don't have to be waving it like a terrible towel. Simply just put it there. People say, when you're sitting in a group, sometimes it's a little difficult to remember which is my water and which is my bread plate. I've set this up so with you're looking at it, so you're sitting down here, this would be your bread plate, this would be your water glass. Still you say, how do I remember that? Very simply, think of the car BMW. So B for bread, M for meal, W for water. Also, just in general, it's always better to be kind than to be right. So if the person next to you doesn't know this and they've taken your water glass, just accept it and use the next one on. You don't have to simply say, excuse me, that one was mine. Just move on. There's another helpful hint that some people use, that if you want to take, remember a B for bread and D for drink. I'm just going to turn around because you want to see it as if you're sitting at your table. If you go like this, B for bread, D for drink, you'll notice that in these corners are those things. I don't particularly care for that one because I think BMW is easy to use. And secondly, I know that if I was going to remember it the other way, I would have to go like this. Sitting at the table like this is a little weird. You could sort of work it into the conversation if you wanted to and say, oh, I just wanted to see if everybody is at the table. Still doesn't look right. So go with the BMW. For your menu, we're going to pretend this is a menu. It does have salad on. Throughout, I don't want to say history, but the most common thing on the good manners listing is that your actual menu should hit the part of the table. I did some of my own research. I couldn't find a reason why you would want to be doing that. Maybe just to keep yourself sitting up a little bit, fine. It doesn't make sense because if you're like this, it may be more difficult to read the menu. Some of the restaurants have very low lights. Maybe romantic, but I'd like to see what I'm eating. Also, I think this has caused a lot of the expressions that you'll hear as in I'll have what he's having because you can't read your own menu. And the ever popular, what are the specials of the day? So when you hear something you may like, you just go with that and forget the actual menu. Reaching across. It's very simple to simply say, may I have the salt? And they'll pass it. Reaching over, not really a good thing to do. In the bread, people like to take the bread, put a lot of butter on it, and address it not as in how are you bread, but addressing it as in one piece and just putting half of it in their mouth at one time. I know I've done that, but what you really should be doing is taking your bread, taking a small piece off of it and buttering it or not, and then eat it one piece at a time. This actually will slow you down a little bit because you should be pacing yourself to the other people in the group. If you finished half the bread basket and other people haven't even really started on theirs, it's best to, again, take your time, enjoy your meal. Another thing, you're sitting down, having a lovely meal. All of a sudden, you need to, quote, excuse yourself. You all just simply have to say is, excuse me, I'll be right back. Nobody needs a whole explanation of what you're doing. Saying to people, I had 5 tacos for lunch, I'm going to explode, I'll be right back. Too much information. So that's a simple way to just move on. And finger food. There's a piece of finger food now. Throughout times, there's been questions. Can I use my fingers with that? Or do I have to use a fork and knife? And a lot of it is simply, it's just common sense that it shouldn't be something that if it's difficult to cut, you're probably not going to cut it. Such as ribs, perfectly acceptable to eat ribs with your fingers. Be careful with the sauce. That's what you have this for. Pizza in general, you're allowed to certainly eat with your hands. Chicago deep dish, whole other story. We're not even, well, I'm not gonna get to the part of is that pizza or not, but, and even things like chicken, corn on the cob, all certainly you can do that with a simple lifting up, and be careful, not too big of a bite. And that's another episode of Library Salad. So regarding table manners, do your best. That's all I can say.